Hey, so tonight, because it occurred today, so I'm going to share it tonight. Um, it's a little bit about the strategy that I think through when sometimes it seems that it's best for a person not to file a claim for Social Security disability or SSI right away, even though they have disabling conditions, ostensibly, and even though they're not working. So normally you're like, oh, that sounds like the perfect time to file, but it's not always. So let me explain. So in this case, the person has mental health issues but has been able to work in a unskilled capacity, more of a physical nature, say maintenance, for many years, but now also has significant physical limitations due to an accident. So as per the description by the person, sitting doesn't happen long because of back pain. The accident caused a broken foot that required surgery, which is apparently still exceedingly painful. Single foot, not bilateral. So, the problem is that we know the mental health was a big problem for years and did limit jobs, obviously. However, there were plenty of unskilled jobs. And maybe in time, he would end up getting fired due to interpersonal interactions, which may have been arguably due to the mental health illness he has. So now what is important to know is that with past work, so while he had serious mental health in all of the past, it itself wasn't totally disabling because it didn't kick out all jobs. And one could say, well, he never keeps a job more than a year or two or 8 months or blah, blah, blah. I get it. And I get that often is because of, it could be a mental health problem or other performance issues, which could be stemming from mental impairments. I mean, mental or physical impairments. But in the eyes of the SSA, as a general rule, being able to work more than 6 months someplace is a successful work attempt. So that would make clear that all the disabilities at that time did not amount to disabled because the person was working full time. Okay. So I still think all those records are important. In this case, it might even be important to go back to high school, even though the person's in the late 30s. Get those school records. Not because I think the person could necessarily win on mental alone. And being a person that's as young as he is, I've made it very clear it's going to be an uphill battle and there is a lot of work to be done. And I don't expect a sprint. I expect a marathon. So, the problem with the mental health is, he has not had treatment since he was a teenager. Just kind of lived with it. Had perhaps an alcohol problem, and perhaps it ran in the family. So there was probably self-medication going on, and that's all in the past. But nonetheless, he was able to work and he wasn't treating. So there are no medical records is the bigger point. Medical records are the foundation of the evidence the SSA can and must use to find you disabled. And without it, they can't. So we have the mental health, which again, even if it was robust, I don't think it would carry the case. But it would certainly help perhaps if we can get medical evidence as to the physical. Now, the treatment that was had since the accident, it was a car accident a few years ago, 2 years ago, say, a little over 2 years ago, but the treatment ended a year ago. So there's a whole year with no treatment. This is going to be a problem by filing now, because there's not going to be any current medical evidence to show that the person didn't recover as treated and went along one's merry way, whether he chose to go back to work or not. I believe there should be orthopedic workup, potentially physical therapy, which would probably be recommended before or after MRI. Certainly diagnostic tests. Now, those are probably 2 years old, or maybe a little earlier. So it's not too terrible how far back they are, because it's not that far back, but we'd need updates. And when there's a problem with no insurance, and that's why someone doesn't have updated medical, and sometimes with a car accident, you're relegated to use the PIP insurance, so long as, if you don't have other insurance, and that's the one that would be primary, I believe. So that would be the stuff that comes under the car accident, no fault. But that has its limits too. So when that is all spent out, then the person is stuck with no insurance. And unless that person has some money in the bank, they're not going to be buying their own. And some people don't choose to buy their own, even if they do have money in the bank. So what I believe needs to be done, and for anyone else that hasn't had treatment in a year, I would say the same thing. Even if your treatment before that was pretty robust. And incidentally, while you're doing this, you have to keep an eye on your date last insured. Okay. So remember when I always say, get your date last insured, DLI, call 1-800-772-1213 and get your date last insured. Because you're going to need to know, because if you are going to wait to file, and the reason to wait, I'll get to in a minute, you want to make sure you still have a very healthy window. Because if you're not working part-time, even just a little bit of part-time, one that won't get in the way of disability, but will also help you keep credits coming in, that will help extend out your DLI like it would if you were working full-time. It does the same thing if you're working part-time, so long as you're earning over a certain amount. So the DLI is very important if you stopped all work altogether, because now that's your window of opportunity. And if you're going to blow off the first part based on the strategy I'm considering here, you need to know that there's a healthy rest of it. If it's not, you might actually end up never being able to prove your case in the amount of time if you haven't been treating during some of that window. So, excuse me, I just gotta do that. If you use the time, like when I spoke to them today, I said, because there's no treatment for a year. Okay. I said, this is what you have to do ASAP, Now, if they're waiting to get hooked up with insurance, thankfully November is only a month away. So I'm not concerned about that. But if they were waiting like years, I'd be like, you got to do something, whether it's Medicaid, if you have no money, or whatever money you have, go out and buy some insurance, buck up for a year or two. But so the strategy is you have to go balls to the wall with getting treatment of all the different areas, not the one that you just think. So if the feet bother you the most and it's really hard to walk very long or stand very long, you're going to go to specialist, podiatrist, get a full workup. Maybe it's surgical consultations, whatever it is. And if there's physical therapy recommended, you do it, unless you have a medical reason not to. If you simultaneously have a painful back that you can't sit long, really, really, really important to know. But you have to have consistent, frequent treatment. There needs to be diagnostics. There needs to be therapies. There needs to be medications can go, like with this particular person, if there is a substance abuse history, and someone doesn't do any kind of substance now and does not want to start for obvious reasons, I think get that well documented in the record. And there's many ways to do that in the medical record as to why, why doesn't somebody take pain medications? Well, this is why. And I think in today's age, ALJs are very understanding of that, because what we've seen, out and about going on. So again, got to get that thorough treatment. So my thought is, I believe the person's DLI is going to be end of 2027. So if that's the case, and I gave him the number to call to find out for sure, if that is the case, I think that is a healthy window. Most of 2023 has been eaten up, unfortunately, and it will be eaten up if doctor's appointments aren't going to occur until January of 2024. But that's still 24, that's still 4 years. So that if something isn't strong enough, particularly for young people, where the burden and the mountain you got to climb is so much higher. It's high for everybody. It's higher for younger people. So I want to see probably 6 months worth of treatment. Follow-up. Sorry, that was my husband. It's our anniversary, 20 years. But he's away at work on business this week. And but I'll see him on Thursday, and then we are going away on Friday. Yee-hoo. Very close by. We got teenage kids, multiple animals, and a grandma here, so we don't go far. Get out. So yeah, I'm thinking 6 months of treatment, maybe less. And it can't just be, well, I'm doing one thing. You got to hit them all hard and heavy. I want to see podiatrists. I want to see orthopedists. I want to see diagnostics on all these different body parts. If there's a headache thing going on, it's probably something cervical. I mean, the damages, with a serious accident to your body can really impact so many different areas. How bad are the headaches? I know those are not the thing that is the most controlling. I think it's the feet, but for this particular individual, but you have to treat for all of it. If there is some anything involved with the fingers, the wrists, the shoulders, the hands, the arms, that is super, super important. We have to prove that this individual cannot do any job that exists in substantial numbers. He can't even do sedentary. He can't do a sit, stand option type of job. I described to them kind of like in between sedentary and light. Can't do that. There's so much to be proven, and you can't do it when you have a year of missing records. So I'm thinking, but there was probably significant records the first year because there was that PIP coverage. So we're going to get all that stuff and then do the background homework before we file. Because if we file without having done that, let's say we filed today, then they're going to deny him because he has no current evidence of any kind of disability. None, zero, zip. He got treated after his accident. Boom, boom, bada bing, all good, right? Unless there's something to show them otherwise. And the mental health hasn't had treatment in the entire adulthood. The family member is the one that was talking to me the most about this stuff. So we need to see either a psychiatrist or an advanced registered nurse practitioner, someone who is credentialed now to prescribe mental health drugs. And with the mental health issues, I have a feeling this is going to be one that's going to need medications for a little more control. Therapist weekly. If this isn't the person that needs to be in a hospital, which thank goodness is not that bad, but it's really interfering with, interpersonal relationships, which include work, coworkers, getting fired from a job, then yeah, you have to go at it like it's a serious issue, because if you're saying it's stopping you from work, who wouldn't go get treatment? Unless you're going to be, eating bugs out of the gutter. I mean, you have to do something. So that's what I want to say. I want to see if they think you should be on medications. And if so, then you need a medications management type of doctor, which would be the psychiatrist or maybe the nurse practitioner or similar who can prescribe. But that's not enough to just go every 3 months for medications management. That's nothing. They don't get to see you. They don't actually know you very well, in theory. So a therapist who treats the particular diagnoses and has, sees the person every week. The treatment's got to become the full-time job, even if it's not full-time. but it's got to be the priority. And then all the other things, you know, maybe it would be where you have a PCP and say, okay, I want an orthopedist for my back. I want an orthopedist for my feet. I want an orthopedist for my neck pain. And anything else. Feet would be obviously podiatry. Maybe there's nerve damage. I don't know. Maybe it would be a neurologist too. But there's nothing about sitting back and hoping that something's going to be good enough, because if there's someone that you haven't seen that you could have seen, and one doesn't because they don't feel like the inconvenience of having to go out and have an appointment, that's not going to cut it. So that's what I said. I said, we'll do this. Let's roll up our sleeves, but I need to see this happen first. So, you know, I put them in my portal, and we will be communicating, and I will be giving, you know, advice from the sideline. And this is before we're even like going anywhere. And then if in 6 months, this is a different picture, I'm willing to take the, you know, the young guy who has a very, very difficult case ahead of him, and giving him the chance, you know. And I know it's very, at least 50-50 that probably that he won't be able to prevail. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see, you know, we'll see what those medicals say, but you know, the younger people have it much, much, much more difficult. But that's the rule of the game. If you haven't been treating, you've got to consider, depending on your DLI, exercising a little restraint before you file. That way they can have something to actually look at on initial instead of deny. And then recon, deny, rubber stamp. And then you're going to an ALJ, and now you have maybe a month worth of treatment. Deny, you know, we need to get it really robust. All right. Yeah, sometimes it's a marathon, but I'm okay with marathons as long as I have a hardworking client with me. All right. And willing to follow directions. All right, guys. Ciao for now. Bye.